Alrighty, law firm answering services. How much is the attitude of your receptionist really costing your law firm? Now, in this video, I'm going to go through some of the decision-making criteria for hiring an answering service and for knowing when you need to make a change in your current intake system so that you can convert more of your leads into actual signups and cases. Now, the first thing I want to comment on is this glaring issue within the legal marketing industry called negative receptionists, okay? It makes my blood boil when we have a great campaign pumping for a specific practice area and then we have someone negative answering all of the phone calls, multitasking, and treating people as though they don't care that they're calling or expressing interest in the law firm that we're marketing. This is a huge problem. I have some notes down here that I'm going to be referring to, but generally speaking, the first thing you need to audit if you're considering getting an answering service for your law firm is the attitude of the current person that's answering your calls. Now, this could be one of three things. One, it could be you as a sole proprietor still answering the calls, okay? It could be a receptionist answering the calls, or it could be a designated salesperson, trained salesperson answering the calls that's an intake specialist for you. Now, most people are going to be within this category, okay, if you're doing it internally for your law firm, which is either you're answering it or you have a multitasking receptionist answering your calls if you don't have an answering service. So that's the first thing to audit, is the attitude of the people answering your calls already, okay? Now, the solution to this is if you identify that the attitude with which you or the receptionist answering the calls is not too positive, i.e. negative, it's probably costing you money. If you're answering the calls, you're busy, you're multitasking, so you're not able to give 100% of yourself to every call that comes in. Same thing for a receptionist that has multiple responsibilities and then also has to answer new client calls. So you do not want to do this. You don't want to have someone multitasking answering your calls. So this is where answering services come in. So you want to create a system in your law firm around having the right attitude on the other end of the line, especially if you're paying for marketing. So here's two things about answering services that make sense to me and to a lot of law firms. Hiring an answering service, if you're not happy with your current intake system, is faster and cheaper most of the time. There's two options here. One, you could go and create this perfect intake system and train people on how to have the right attitude and give them an intake script and go super in depth, and that's great, but that's going to cost a lot of time on your behalf, okay? A answering service, you can actually buy that system, and we have a whole list of recommended answering services we could give you, but the bottom line is you're buying a positive solution-oriented system by working with a good answering service that you can cut the time it takes to build your own intake system, learn what the answering service is doing, take notes on it. You can give them elements of script and questions, qualifying questions you want them to ask. But keep this in mind. You can take notes on what they're doing in their systems, okay, so that in the future, when your firm grows, you can have a designated person answering your calls. It's cheaper also because you're going to be paying more per minute, but it's cheaper because you don't have to hire a full-time person to be answering your calls. You only have to pay for the minutes used on the phone with an answering service. So it's faster and cheaper to use an answering service. Now, another question to ask yourself is, are you dropping any calls? If you're currently dropping calls, okay, this further increases the reason for you to hire an answering service. Okay, this compounds if you're targeting high average case values. So if you're in catastrophic PI, for example, and targeting birth injury cases that can be 7 figures, you want to make absolutely sure you are answering phone calls 24/7, okay? On holidays too. And one of the best ways to ensure that, instead of having a full-time person do that all the time, is an answering service. So, question, if you have a large average case value or client value, you probably want to consider an answering service even more. Another thing to think about is what percentage of your practice is all referrals versus cold. Okay? If you're a 100% referral practice, 100%, then you probably don't have to panic about an answering service because there's already going to be a lot of trust built up for people who call you as referrals versus cold internet leads or cold direct mail leads, right? So if your primary source of business is cold marketing leads, you absolutely need an answering service. You cannot bank on a multitasking receptionist to be answering your calls with enthusiasm, energy, and a solution-oriented mindset. You can't bank on that, okay? Your ROI will immediately show if you have someone designated answering your calls. So, another thing to question is, are you in a low-income niche? This happens a lot with personal injury lawyers. They target lower income niches, right, for auto accidents as an example. If you're in a low income niche or like elderly, niches or niches where people are less tech savvy, you definitely want to consider an answering service because low income individuals and potential clients are more likely to just call another firm, versus doing due diligence, doing heavy research on one firm, calling them, you don't pick up their call, and then they'll wait, patiently for a call back. And also tie this into the amount of emotional decision making involved in your practice area. So for example, PI, people make quick decisions. Business law, not so quick decisions. Any retainer-based niche, criminal defense, lower retainers in criminal defense, people make quick decisions. High retainer, complex family law, they're probably gonna make lower decisions. Higher income individuals. Regardless of all this, you need to audit the attitude of the person currently answering your calls. You need to realize that an answering service is usually faster and cheaper. You can audit and learn from the systems of an answering service and then implement internally when you're ready to bring on a full-time person. And then also, you need to think about what percentage of your practice is referral-based versus cold marketing-based, okay? And if you're more cold marketing-based, you definitely want to consider getting an answering service quickly. So my name is Bill Hauser, owner of the SMB team. If you want any recommendations for answering services, we're not an answering service, but we can point you in the right direction of some of the answering services we've worked with. And we have a pretty good idea if you just want someone to answer the calls versus if you want someone to handle the whole intake. There's services that go through the whole gamut of just answering your calls and passing it to someone versus doing the entire intake process without your involvement. So let me know if you want any information on that. You can comment in the video. I'll try to reply back to you. If not, go to smbteam.com, smallmediumbusinessteam.com, and ask a question about what answering service we'd recommend, and someone on my team will get back to you. So I hope this was valuable. Get an answering service if you're thinking about it. Stop missing opportunities and get the attitude portion right.